Galactic travelers, thanks for tuning in to Resonant Being's stream of consciousness. So far, we've talked about expectations in relationships. We've talked about growth on an external and internal level. And we've talked about economies of scale. Lastly, we talked about maturity. Now I want to tie these things together in this video and talk about purpose in life. So before watching this one, if you haven't watched the previous videos in Stream of Consciousness Volume 1, you're going to want to step back and start from the beginning and work your way here. Purpose in life. Intent of action, of being. We can think in terms of divine destiny, a master plan, a greater presence than our own individual selves, or we can talk in terms of free will, of random happenstance, of no intervention whatsoever, or we can talk about purpose of life in terms of maybe a mixture of the two. I want to give the example of salmon. Now, salmon are an anadromous fish, meaning that they spawn in the rivers way upstream. And in the early part of their life cycle, migrate out to the ocean, where they live for a number of years, up to maybe 5, and then migrate back upstream to spawn before making their final resting place, taking their final resting place, before taking their final resting place in the waters. Now, I bring this up for a good reason. And the reason is, in our lives, we encounter a lot of claims of purpose. Oh, it's all about this. Fine cars, fine women, fine men, lots of money, fine things. Or maybe other people are saying, no, it's not about any of that. It's about relinquishing wants and desires and things of this world and living so simply. Or this, that, or the other thing. But we could find ourselves looking at these things respectively, stepping out of the I, that saying that I want this, I want that, and looking at ourselves rather than in terms of personal gain or gain through not gaining, which is still a personal gain. It's gaining the ego of the prowess that, oh, I'm fulfilling myself by not consuming. Rather than any of these things, be it materialistic or spiritual, rather than any of these things, what if we looked at purpose in life in terms of what you might call the life cycle, or for that matter, you might call the very essence of nature, or the nature of reality, or existence itself, all that is? What if purpose in life was looked at as what is it that we're really doing here? What if just carrying out our functions of being human actually is enough. And to tie this back to the example of the salmon and explain why this is relevant, I'm willing to guess that salmon aren't ever questioning why they're living the way they are. And people in previous generations that I've encountered love to point out that things in terms of, oh, but this is what separates us from the animals. This is why humans are more evolved. They're the tool makers. They're the self-analyzers. They have these big, glorious brains. But the salmon carry out their lives never concerned about sex until the very end. And then they are returned to the waters from which they came. Their bodies decay and fertilize the forest and feed the gulls and other seabirds. The salmon, though acting on free will of where they swim, when they decide to move or not move, acting on free will, are still acting in accordance with a principle, with a purpose. That is ultimately not up to their choice. It will be determined by their free will, their capacity to be the best salmon that they can be, as to whether they'll make it to the end destination upriver, or maybe they get caught in the jaws of a larger sea creature along the way. But purpose being that no matter what they do, they're going to end up back into the waters in the life cycle that spawned them in the beginning. Now, if we look at any life like this, including humanity and humans, the species, we find that it's ultimately the same. So, what is life all about? What does it all really come down to? Is it about cars? Is it about money? Is it about the latest technology or what's on TV? Is it about becoming enlightened or being the greatest scholar? Or is it actually about none of these things at all? And that really what's going on is there's both free will, individual embodiment of inclination, following appeals, following desires, acting on whatever seems most enjoyable or most plausible or the best path to take for any one individual, decided by themselves on this ultimately predestined watercourse way of where no matter what we do, we're going to be recycled back into the system. What do you think? You decide. Share your thoughts in the comment below. Purpose in life? I think so. Divine purpose in a holy creator? Well, we're all coming from the same thing, aren't we? Call it God. Call it what you like. To borrow from the words of Alan Watts. This is a resonant being. Be well.